Hi readers, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Wendy, and today we are going to be going over my September reads. I am a very mixed reader, a mood reader, so it all depends on what my mood is. I'm going to be talking about all of the 9 books I read in September with a yes, no, or maybe, just to keep it somewhat short. I will try not to blab about these books, so without further ado, let's get into it. The first book that I read in September is The Witch of Wild Things by Raquel Vasquez Gilliland. This book packed a powerful punch and also touched on grief. And I love this book for its nostalgia and also its Hispanic heritage roots. This book touches upon finding yourself, your true self, and embracing it. It is also a romance fantasy book because it does deal with witchy things and powers that were inherited by 3 sisters. In my opinion, this book is a must read. It is fun. It is a breath of fresh air, if you may. I will say that yes, this book is a must read. The next book on the list is The Things We Leave Unfinished by Rebecca Yarros. Now, this book was, yes, a tearjerker at times, but this was also such a good romance novel. And I applauded Rebecca for this book because it captured a timeless love, and it also goes back to the 1940s, World War II, Germany, and of course the Nazis. And it was such a good story. It follows 2 storylines, one for Scarlett and one for Georgia, which they are grandmother and daughter. And I absolutely love this book. I recommend. This is a must read. Yes, with all my heart, yes. The next book we're going to talk about is Quicksilver. So most of my books I read on Kindle. Quicksilver I did read on Kindle. It was on Kindle Unlimited at the time that I read it. Quicksilver is a romantasy, and I saw so much hype around this book, and I thought, let me just take a moment and actually read it, see if I like it. And to be honest, I was bored in the beginning. It didn't quite pick up for me until about 45% to 50% of the book. So if you're a reader that likes to get captured into a book in the first couple of chapters, I don't think this book will do that for you. There were certain things that I was just kind of like, okay. For example, Kingfisher, the MMC, just smells the FMC and gets aroused. It was kind of like a little bit of a iffy thing with Quicksilver and me. However, after that 50% mark, the book did pick up for me, and so I would say this is a maybe/yes. It depends on what type of reader you are. I myself gave this book, I believe, a 4.5 stars. It really wasn't quite 5 stars for me, just for the simple fact that it dragged on in the beginning, and I like a book to kind of capture my attention, and I just felt like Quicksilver was way overhyped. I don't think it was a full 5 stars for me. Didn't pick up for me, like I said, until after the 50% mark. However, after that, it picks up, and it was a lot of things happening all at once. So if you're a romantasy reader looking for some spice in books, this one definitely packs spice. I liked it, but it's kind of like a maybe for me. But overall, it was a good ending, and now with the release of the second book coming out in November, I will probably pick up the second book just to see what happens, because it ends in a cliffhanger. Things go haywire, and yeah. If you want to check out the review on Quicksilver that I've made, I will link it down below. I go into detail about Quicksilver and what my thoughts are on it. The next book I want to talk about is In the Likely Event by Rebecca Yarros. I've read a lot of Yarros this past month, so bear with me. So this book dives into military, and a lot of Rebecca Yarros's books dive into military. If you are in a mood for military romance and that sort of stuff, Rebecca Yarros is your go-to besides Fourth Wing. In the Likely Event, I felt that the FMC was a little bit childish for me. She got into certain pickles for me that I'm just like, girl, it's your life. We're talking about your life, and you're risking your life, and you have this hot man willing to risk it all for you. And she was just, I don't know. She was a turnoff for me. They did survive a plane crash together, and that kind of tied them together for a decade. This was a very slow romance, slow burn book, and it does have a miscommunication trope. So if you are not the type of reader that likes communication tropes, I don't recommend it. But if you don't mind the miscommunication trope, then it could be a good read for you. This book for me was a maybe. I wasn't feeling it. Did I like it? Yeah, but I just didn't feel connected to it as much as her other books. It kind of just felt childish, like I said, for me, and the FMC was just she was kind of meh for me. The next book on my list is Legendborn. Legendborn is a must read. This is a yes. This book had me in a chokehold. This is a 3-part series so far. I believe there will be a 4th book because of the way that the 3rd book ended, which is Oathbound. If you are looking for a fantasy romance dealing with grief and powers and demons and discovering yourself, then this is the perfect book to pick up. I couldn't put this book down. It was so good. Is there spice? No, not really. I mean, the most they did was maybe go to second base. No, maybe first base. Just kissing. That's about it. I love the emotional part of this book, which is finding your true self, finding out where you come from, also dealing with grief. This book dives really deep into grief, and I love the way Tracy Deonn kind of gave us the grief portion, but also the healing portions of Bree, the FMC. I love this book, and it also resonated with me because of the loss of my mother. Both I and the FMC both lost our moms at a young age, so I related to this book, and I hope not others relate to this book in that way, but it does touch deeply on grief. The next book on the list is Variations by Rebecca Yarros. Now, this book was a little bit different than all the other Rebecca Yarros books. It is a romance novel, yes. However, this is about a ballerina who has a prestigious career, and she is at the height of it. However, she suffers an accident, and that led her to I believe a rupture or an injury to her Achilles tendon. That was supposed to be a career-ending injury. However, she rose above it, and then at one of her plays, she pushes herself too hard and then re-injures it. Yep, she re-injured it. Now she really has to rest, and obviously her parents are rich and prestigious and have a huge name in the ballet and ballerina world. And so her family has a beach house where they return to, and there she meets the FMC, and he kind of helps her rediscover who she is besides ballerina. She grew up in a very strict household, specifically her mother. Her mother did not let her date and did not let her be herself. She kind of expected her to be this just ballerina and not have a life outside of ballet. Do I recommend this book? Yes, I recommend this book. It's a yes for me. You should pick it up and read it. It does touch on grief as well. A lot of Rebecca's books touch on grief, but yes, this book touches on grief, self-discovery, amongst other things. The next book we'll be discussing is The Last Letter by Rebecca Yarros. Now, this book is a yes for me, first of all. It is a 6-star as well for me this year. It touches so good on grief, also on motherhood. I am a mom, and this touched my mom's strings to the max. This book is a military romance. The FMC is a mom and also a mom to twins, which is hard enough. She was a young mom at 19, and she discovers that her daughter later on has cancer, and it goes through the whole grieving process of finding out that your child has cancer, and different things start going through your mind. Through this chaotic event that is happening to this mother, she meets Chaos, and Chaos is deployed. And not only is he deployed, he's deployed with her brother, and her brother asked her if she can send letters to Chaos because he is lonely, he doesn't have family, he doesn't have anybody back home. And so he tells her, hey, can you just write him a letter? And at first, Chaos was a little bit apprehensive about writing back. However, he did put pen to paper and decided to write back, and they fell in love with each other through letters and never saw each other in person. There's so many plot twists and things that I did not see coming at the end of this book. Grab it. If you have not read it and it's on your shelf or in your TBR, I recommend you pick it up and read it. Do grab tissues though, because it's a tearjerker. I started crying around chapter 3 or 4. Yeah, it's a big tearjerker, and then it gets worse. So if you want a good cry, pick this book up. The next book we'll be discussing is Great and Precious Things by Rebecca Yarros. Now, this book is a romance, military as well. This book is about a young man who goes into the army and enlists along with his brother. However, he does not come back with his brother. And so he lives in a very small town. Everybody knows each other. Everybody knows each other's gossip. I mean, everybody's in each other's lives, pretty much govern themselves. And it seems like everybody has their hand in politics because of how small the town is. So the MMC comes back home not only with grief of losing his sibling, but also he has to come back and face this town who deemed him as kind of a troubled child, a troubled young man. And once he returns home, feelings start flooding back because he was and is in love with this FMC. The kicker is that this FMC was his brother who was killed in Afghanistan. That was his brother's girlfriend at that time. So yes, there is a lot of drama, a lot of town drama, a lot of gossiping and what's right, what's wrong, how do they handle these feelings, and I think it was a great book. Yes, it is a good read. I suggest you pick it up as well. The last and final book is Full Measures by Rebecca Yarros. So this book was heavy duty grief. It is a slow burn romance novel. It was packed with a lot of grief. It is about an FMC who loses her father in Afghanistan. Soldiers come knocking at the door and her mother goes into shock because she knows what that means. And when they come knocking at your door, it can only mean one thing, that her father wasn't coming back. I think what got me in this book was just the entire ceremony of a burial for a soldier, a fallen soldier at that. This book is also about healing, and the FMC meets this MMC, which she remembers him from high school. They're now in college, but she remembers him as being this jockey and hot guy that every girl desired, and she felt like she could never measure up to the type of girls that he used to hang around. However, she will be surprised to know that he actually liked her. He also helps her grieve and is there for her, and he always tells her, I am your whatever, meaning use me as you want to. And this book was written so beautifully. I loved the healing. I loved the emotional impact that it gave me about grief. So do I recommend this book? This is a yes. It is a must read. I loved it. And if you want to shed a few tears, this would be a great book as well. I didn't sob in this book. However, I felt super emotional and I felt the grief in my heart, and I felt for not only the FMC, but her family and what happens and the changes that happens when their loved one doesn't come home from war. So yes, it is a must read. For the most part, I loved every single book that I read, plus or minus maybe one or two. However, if you do want a little bit more details about this book and an in-depth analysis on them, I am going to link them down below. In this collection, I found 2 6 reads, which was The Last Letter and also Legendborn. I love those 2 books the most, and I recommend them as a must read. I am an emotional reader, like I said. I read books with emotion, so my ratings on all my books are also emotionally based. Like, yeah, I look at the writing and I look at all the little minute things, but I feel that the biggest impact that a book can have is how does it emotionally connect with you and how does it make you feel as a reader. If you love this content, please give me a thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe to continue more book content. And as always, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.